Hi, this is Bruce Buffer, your voice of the Octagon, and you're listening to MMA Mental.
Welcome to this week's MMA Mental podcast, which is sponsored by UK Fightwear. My name is Ray. I've got two fantastic guests on this week. We've got a Bellator fighter and a UFC fighter, but before we let you know who they are, I just want to do my shout outs. We've got a big family here at MMA Mental. We've got some. We're involved with some other good shows that we always like to shout out. So just want to list them off, and then I'll let you know who we've got on this week's show. So first of all, I want to shout out MMApodcast.com, which is hosted by Jake and Ramses. They do a weekly show. We've got The Word on the Street, which is Jake and Ramses again. They also have Coach Jamie Huey, a bit more tongue-in-cheek, but Ramses has been getting some huge interviews on that show, which is doing big things. I know he spoke to Bob Sapp recently about fixes in MMA. Then we've got the MMA Victor Roundtable, which is hosted by myself, and I'm joined by Brooks and UFC middleweight Luke Barnett. We just get together on the week of a UFC fight card and break down all the big fights on that particular event. You've got the Early Stoppage podcast, which is hosted by Jay Jeans. Want to shout out the MMA Addiction on Facebook, which is Brooks's page, giving you all the latest MMA news. Check out MMAmental.com on Facebook as well. We've got a page to like, and check out UFC Games, which is something that I run myself. Just a little bit of fun, but it's always nice to see who. If you think you're better at picking fights, it's a kind of way to prove it. Okay, we've got two guests lined up. We'll start with a Bellator fighter. We've got Mike The Marine Richman, who has been doing big things over in Bellator. He's been in the featherweight tournaments. He made it to the semis, the first one, and then made it to the final, the last one. He's certainly been a standout, and he revealed to us in this interview, which was very interesting, that he's decided to drop down a weight. So he talks to us about lots of things, but he talks to us about dropping down to bantamweight. And you've got to feel if he's going to drop down to bantamweight, with how effective he's been at featherweight, the world's his oyster at bantamweight. I can't wait to see how he does. And then we speak to one of the top UK lightweight, Ross, the real deal Pearson. He has a great in-depth chat with us. We talk about his time in the UFC, his time as a contestant on TUF 9, as a coach. He tells us the real story of what happened between his coach on TUF Smashes and George Sotiropoulos. So straight from the horse's mouth, as they say. And he also reveals to us who he'd like to fight next as well. UFC Top 10 or Takanori Gomi. But all in all, a brilliant interview with Ross. So hopefully you enjoy listening to both of those. Okay, we're now joined by Bellator standout Mike The Marine Richman. Mike, thanks for joining us today.
No, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Obviously, I'm a big fan. I've watched a lot of your fights, obviously more so your Bellator fights, and I always enjoy watching your fights. So I was looking forward to having a chance to speak to you and get a little bit of your background.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, looking at your record, you've been fighting professionally since 2008. What made you want to get into mixed martial arts?
Well, I mean, I've always been a big fan of combat sports. I was a huge fan of boxing and still am now. Once MMA really started to grow and the sport really started to take off, I always had a desire to do it, and I felt like I had the talent to do it. And when I got out of the Marine Corps, that's just something that was one of my plans, was to get into training and get a fight, and then just see where it goes from there.
Obviously, you talked there about the Marine Corps. How long were you in the Marine Corps for?
I was in the Marine Corps active duty for 4 years, 2004 to 2008. And
would you say that helped you with your mental toughness with regards to training and fighting?
Yeah, I definitely think the Marine Corps does add to my toughness, as far as mental toughness and physical toughness for, both training and getting ready for, some battles, in the cage. As far as mixed martial arts, I do think that the mental edge and just the physical edge, it does help out a lot. It does transfer over a lot, but doing boxing growing up and then wrestling, I think just all of those together just really help for my success right now.
I was going to ask you about if you've done any training before MMA. So you did a little bit boxing and wrestling. So what did you do in boxing and what did you do in wrestling?
Well, as far as boxing is concerned, I never competed in any type of Golden Gloves or amateurs. But my dad and my uncle, they competed in both Golden Gloves and amateurs. So I grew up learning boxing and training. I never got into that, like I said, competition-wise, which I wish I would have. I would have really enjoyed it. And then as far as wrestling, I wrestled from, I want to say, I don't know, maybe third or fourth grade till about 11th grade. So I had a little bit of wrestling background. It was nothing high level as far as high school competition. Didn't wrestle in college, but I definitely had the background and I have the skill set in certain aspects of that have definitely transferred over.
Obviously, you talked there about the boxing and the wrestling. I think at one time, them two are obviously still seen as two of the main bases for mixed martial arts. So having that background, how did that help you with regards to training in jiu-jitsu, which is obviously also a big part of mixed martial arts?
Well, training, having those two backgrounds and getting into jiu-jitsu wasn't very big, hard adjustment for me. Just learning jiu-jitsu has been fairly easy. I don't do much gi jiu-jitsu, but as far as no gi and understanding the concepts and learning moves and applying that into fighting, it seems relatively easy. I think a lot of the reason why the transition to jiu-jitsu hasn't been too hard. A lot of wrestlers, they were high-level high school or college wrestlers. They have that top game. Then the wrestling is just so ingrained in their system, like a muscle memory, to where it is, for some high-level wrestlers, it's harder for them to learn, to get used to the jiu-jitsu off your back, getting used to those types of submission escapes and etc.
I mean, obviously, looking over your resume, you built up a 11-1 record before you were picked up by Bellator. How did it come about that Bellator picked you up? How did that work out?
Well, as far as the Bellator is just my manager got into touch with one of their talent guys, Zach Light, and it just they were interested in possibly having me come to Bellator, and it was one of my fights before Bellator. Essentially, was like, hey, if he has a good performance and he wins, then we want to sign him. And I went out there, fought a good fight. They wanted to sign me after that, and then it's just been with Bellator ever since.
And obviously, you got picked up by Bellator, and you were chucked in the deep end really, because your first fight was against Chris Horodecki, and of course he's quite well known. He's fought in some of the bigger promotions before. I think he had a lot of success in the IFL. So he's obviously quite a big name going forward. So how did you feel about facing such a big name opponent? Did you know much about him going in?
Oh yeah, I knew everything about Chris Horodecki. I like you said, he's fought in big organizations. I watched him on the IFL. I watched him in the WEC. It was kind of one of those scenarios. He was dropping a featherweight for the first time. They brought up that they wanted me to fight him, and it was kind of almost like a tournament qualifier in a sense. I initially went into that fight as the underdog. His first fight at 145. I fought him in Canada, like an hour and a half away from his home area. And when they offered me my manager was skeptical about me taking it, but I'm like, hey, I want that fight. Like, let's do it. Make that happen. I knew my style at the time was just a really, really bad matchup for him, and I knew the moment that they brought up the fight to me that I would win, and that was my opportunity to kind of start making a name for myself.
And obviously, after winning that fight, you made it into the the season 7 featherweight tournament, and you went 1-1. You won the opening round, and then you lost in the semi-final. What was it like getting that head kick win over Jeremy Spoon in such a quick and dramatic fashion?
It was, after the win against Hordeski and then going out there and beating Jeremy Spoon very quick with the head kick, having those two big highlight reel finishes in Bellator, it was an amazing, opening in Bellator, and it was a great feeling that, to show me that, I can come in here, I can put away some top level guys and put on some great fights. It was
a great way to start the featherweight tournament. Now, of course, in between that tournament and the tournament this year, there was a big change at Bellator because they moved over to Spike TV. How excited were you at the fact they're moving on to a bigger platform, and what kind of impact has that had on you as a fighter?
Well, between the two tournaments, the MTV2 and then on the Spike TV, huge opportunity for you to be seen by more fans, and you have more of an opportunity to build your name off what was the numbers? I'm trying to think. MTV2, their average viewership was like 175,000, and the average viewers for them on Spike TV is around like 800,000. And that's just a huge jump in viewership and who's watching you perform, and that just goes. That just helps you build your brand, make a name for yourself as far as sponsors, fans, work your way up the rankings. It's really cool to be able to fight on that type of platform.
It is really cool, and what's really cool about Bellator at the moment is they've. I don't know how aware of you are of this or not, but they've just signed a deal in the UK as well. So I live in the UK, so now I'll get to watch Bellator live on TV as well, which. Normally I have to find videos and stuff online. I ain't got to do that anymore, so I'm pretty excited about that. It's going to be great to see, because Bellator is doing such big things at the moment, and there's so many exciting fighters and exciting fights on Bellator. It's great to finally get on over here as well.
Yeah, I bet.
Okay, so we move forward obviously to this tournament then, and you started off the tournament with another head kick knockout against Mitch Jackson. What was it like to kind of repeat the head kick?
Yeah, it was really cool. It was really cool to get in there and to finish Mitch Jackson with another head kick. That's kind of, one of my tricky little strikes that I use. Trying to get people to think that I'm just going to box with them and then throw the head kick up there. He was also Minnesotan, so we had a little bit of rivalries to go out there and finish him in that fashion on TV was pretty big, and it was good to get back into the semifinals.
And yeah, it was fantastic. Obviously, you went on to the final and you lost a close decision in the final. Now, your current record is 15-3. What is your personal highlight so far out of all your fights?
Say that again?
What's your personal highlight out of all your fights so far?
What is
what's your favourite fight?
Oh, what is my favorite fight so far? My favorite fight would probably be the Popo Bazea fight or the Hordeski fight. Just because the Hordeski fight was that was a big pivotal moment in trying to make a name for myself in MMA. Some no-name guy. He was a tough reject. That's kind of what I was labeled. I was on the tough reject from the Ultimate Fighter 12. So going out there and beating Hordeski, that was pretty huge. And then the win over Popo Bazea, being down that first round, he had my back, coming back and gutting out that performance and winning that close fight was, super rewarding. Sometimes winning a fight like that is more rewarding than a highlight reel finish. To be able to claw your way back and take that win away from your opponent is pretty special, and especially against a talented Brazilian fighter like he is. That was a pretty huge win for me and a pretty enjoyable fight.
I think it's fair to say the featherweight tournament this year was completely stacked. That's where all the tournaments, and we've seen in some of the other weight class tournaments, they don't always go the way they're expected to go. And like you say, that was a great victory for you in the semi-final. The other thing I wanted to, the other thing I wanted to talk to you about, I wasn't going to bring up the TUF thing because I did look into that and I saw that you'd lost. So I thought there's not really a lot we can go into over that. So I really wanted to focus on the Bellator. But what happens with you now then? What plans have you got going forward? Obviously, we know we've got a new Bellator series coming up. Where do you go from here? Obviously, you're the runner-up in last season's tournament. What happens next for you?
Well, all I can really say now is, I'm still going to be with Bellator. I can't really announce when my next fight is yet officially, but all I can say is that I am in the process of a new diet and I'm dropping to 135 pounds and fighting in bantamweight.
Wow, so you're going to drop down to 135?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's fantastic. And how excited are you at the prospect of dropping down to 135?
I'm super excited to drop down to that weight class. My cut to 145 has always been relatively easy. I would still be able to indulge in fat foods, but I would still, about 2 or 3 weeks, I'd be able to diet down, and then I would get down to about, I would really only cut like 4 pounds of water weight, the week of the fight, which is relatively low. So I didn't really have to cut too hard to make 145. Now the change of diet and the cut to 135 will be difficult, but it is definitely it's the reason why I'm doing it, because I want to be the best in the world. I want to be top ranked. I want to be a world champion. So people can call me a title chaser or whatever I'm trying to do. Dropping weight, but if I can do it and I can maintain my skill level and perform at a high level, then I'm going to drop down and I'm going to look to be the best at that weight class.
I personally think it's the smart thing to do. We've seen now the skill levels are that high now that if you can get any kind of advantage with size, you've got to make the most of it. And other fighters are doing it, aren't they? So you'd be mad not to do it if you're able to do it.
Yeah.
Well,
exactly.
Sorry, go on. What were you going to say?
No, I said yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think it's a smart move. I can't wait to see the impact you have at 135. And again, there's some really good fighters down there. It makes for some really interesting matchups. I'll look forward to hearing what gets announced for you next with regards to opponents. Well, thank you very much for joining me today. It's been a real pleasure having you on the show. Before we let you go, do you want to give you a chance to do any shout-outs? Do you want to shout out any friends, family, sponsors, and also let people know about your Facebook and your Twitter?
Well, first off, I want to make a shout-out to Brandon Gertz. He's fighting this Wednesday. This Wednesday night, the first show of the summer series. He'll be on undercard. He's gonna be making a huge name. He's kind of in a position where I was when I first started with Bellator, to where, he's gonna go out here. He's gonna have a fantastic fight. He's gonna get that highlight reel finish, and you'll be seeing him in the next, the next tournament and winning a tournament. So I'm here for him, and I'm also, getting ready for my fight. And as far as sponsors, I want to thank Future Legend. They've been in my corner since my very first Bellator fight. And then, all my other sponsors that have my back, from Camel Labs, G Field to Lexani Wheels, the list goes on and on. I'd like to thank my manager, Andrew Studer and Jeremy Bjornberg and Ryan Jansen. And then, all my friends and family and all the fans that enjoy watching me fight. I just look forward to getting back in there and exciting the crowd, exciting the fans at home.
Well, you're certainly doing that at the minute. I look forward to seeing it as well. Thank you very much for your time.
All right, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
No problem. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. I'm now joined by top UFC lightweight Ross Real Deal Pearson. Ross, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for that, man. Anytime, not a problem.
Right, I'll be honest with you, I've been looking forward to speaking to you for quite a while. Obviously, you are easily the UK's number one lightweight. We've got some great lightweights, but you're clearly number one, and you're obviously one of the best lightweights in the world as well. So, right, let's jump in. Let's find out a little bit about your background first. You've been fighting mixed martial arts professionally since 2004. What made you want to get into mixed martial arts?
It was a bit crazy, really. I've been involved in martial arts my whole life. I started Taekwondo when I was 6. I got a black belt in Taekwondo when I was 8. Moved into Judo when I was 9. I got a brown belt in Judo. And then from my teenage years, from 12, 13, I was amateur boxing. I had 18 amateur boxing bouts. And my dream was when I was at school. I used to miss going to school to go to the boxing gym. I wanted to be a professional boxer. I knew from a very early age that I wanted to be a professional fighter. I didn't know how I was going to get there or what I was going to do, but that's what I knew deep down. That's what I wanted to do. But just a few friends, they got involved in mixed martial arts. They got involved in the ground stuff and the wrestling, and I was still totally a boxer at the time. And they were like, "Do you want to come and train?" And I was just like, "Yeah, sure." And I just got addicted to it straight away. I don't know what it was from the very first session. I just knew my whole mind and my whole philosophy on fighting and everything changed, and this was from a very young age. I mean, I think I was about 16 when that happened, and I just knew that I wanted to go in and fight for real, not just box. You know, I wanted to try out mixed martial arts, and the dream of being in the UFC came alive from a very young age.
After doing the boxing, how did you find the ground game?
I don't know what it is with me in the ground game, but you know, I in training, I absolutely love the ground game. I love playing jiu-jitsu. I love grappling. I love wrestling. I love learning. I love the ground game, and I took to it straight away. You know, I'm not saying that I'm the best jiu-jitsu player in the world, because that's stupid to say that, but I do have quite a decent ground game. I can play jiu-jitsu, I can grapple, I can submit, I can sweep, and my ground game is evolving. But when it comes to fighting, I just don't like fighting on the ground. I just don't like being on my back. I don't like grappling. When I like to fight, I like to fight. I like swapping leather. I like punching, kicking, knee, and elbow, and just getting into a real fight. And I don't know why I can't switch my mind to be able to fight off the ground. I don't know what it is. I don't know if I'm wired up a little bit different, if my genetics don't like it. But when it's a fight, it's a fight. And when it's training, it's training. They're completely different things, you know?
I think it's fair to say, though, that mentality has been very successful, because you've shown that you're striking it. You know, it's not just good, it's world class, and we've seen that at the highest level of mixed martial arts, which is obviously the UFC. Obviously, we first saw you on the mainstream, which was for The Ultimate Fighter Season 9. How did it come about that you were on The Ultimate Fighter? What was the application process like?
You know, I didn't actually apply for The Ultimate Fighter Season 9. I knew that it was happening, and I actually took a fight with Abdul Muhammad, and I guess the UFC were kind of looking at Abdul to come in to the UFC, and I guess that was going to be his route into the UFC. And we fought down in Liverpool, and I lost a bad majority unanimous decision fight to Abdul. And I mean, I'm not going to go back and talk about rubbish, because this was years ago, but there was no way he won that fight. It was quite clearly I won that fight. But the UFC approached me after this fight, and they offered me basically his contract. Really, just said, "Would you want to do it? Would you go on the show? Would you be happy to do it? And would you be interested in fighting for the UFC?" And I was just like, "Yeah, sure." So before I actually went out to Vegas, I actually snuck in another fight, just for financial reasons. I fought Ian Jones in Doncaster. Unfortunately, I submitted Ian in the first round, and yeah, it was kind of like an in-fight. I didn't go to the auditions. I didn't speak to anyone from the UFC or anything like that. I was kind of, when I went out to Vegas for like the final medical, I kind of knew that I was in already, you know, because they had asked us to go, and the way they were treating us, I kind of felt like I already was getting a contract, but just like that was the way I was going to be introduced into the UFC, by doing the show.
That's brilliant. It just shows you how you obviously impressed in that fight. If they took you off that one performance, what did you know any going into the house? Did you know any of the other UK contestants? Obviously, it was a Team UK versus Team US season. Did you know any of the other contestants?
Yeah, I mean, I knew pretty much everyone by name. Obviously, Dean Amasinger, Nico Shipshack, and Andre Winner were a team there with Team Roughhouse, and me and Andre were actually training together before the show, before we even got on the show. So I think I'd been with Team Roughhouse for about maybe 6 months to a year before the Ultimate Fighter. So I was good friends and training partner with Dean and Andre and Nick already. So it was the three of us. We already were good friends, and we knew quite a lot about each other. And it was quite funny actually, because I'm good friends with Jeff Lawson, and we were getting built up to actually fight each other. So I was, before the Ultimate Fighter, I was trying to cause a bit shit and give Jeff some shit, like friendly stuff, but calling him out and wanting to fight him, and just being the idiot that I am. And you know, me and Jeff are good friends, and I'm really glad that fight didn't happen, because I wouldn't want to fight Jeff. He's such a good friend of mine and a good guy, and it was just me causing a bit shit. Really, I like to get a bit mischievous at times.
I can see that. I can see that side to you, and I've seen you fight as well. To be fair, obviously the coach for you that season was Michael Bisping, and of course it's fair to say that Michael has been a pioneer for UK MMA. Did you know much? Did you know Bisping at all going in?
I wasn't friends or anything. Obviously, I knew a lot about him. I'd watched a lot of stuff on him, but we'd never actually trained together. We'd met before through other people, but I didn't really know him too well. But it was just a massive opportunity for, like I say, going out to train with Mike and his guys, Dave Jackson and Mario Sakata, and just really realizing what it takes to be a top level UFC fighter. You know, I learned that from an early age. You know, I was only young when I was in the Ultimate Fighter. I think I was like 23, and I was just so keen and so hungry, and I just got my eyes open to the levels of mixed martial arts and where the sport was going, and how much I needed to develop myself, not only as a fighter but as a person. You know, my life had totally changed, and I was just pumped, man. I was just so excited to get out there and start fighting with people. You know, I couldn't wait. So
would you say overall then it was working with Michael Bisping and his team was overall a great experience?
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I mean, Mike and Dave and Mario, they put all the time and effort into us. They put a great camp together, and really that was my very first ever fight camp. When I think back in my whole fight career, before the Ultimate Fighter, I just trained constantly and took fights here and wherever, you know. But when season 9 of the Ultimate Fighter, that was really my very first fight camp, and mentally it structured a lot of stuff to help me going on to even fights today, you know. A lot of things that I've taken away from what Mike does, and where Mike is in his career, you know. I still look up to Mike. Like I say, he's the pioneer. He's the guy that's got the #1 spot in UK, and he's got that rightly so, you know. But he's creating a pathway for all these younger kids. He's created a pathway for me, and I look up to that. I respect that, and like I say, everything Mike does, I respect him, and I wish him the best as always, and I support him always, and he knows that I'm there for him all the time, and it's just he's done a lot for me over in my career, you know.
Yeah, I think we've had a few pioneers from the UK, and obviously, you know, the first one's probably Ian the Machine Freeman. Michael Bisping's of course been a big pioneer, but I think you've got to put yourself in that bracket as well. You've certainly led the way, and you've also opened a lot of doors. What Michael Bisping's done for you, you've done for a lot of people as well, especially as the premier lightweight. I mean, we've got some fantastic lightweights in this country, but you've obviously been leading the way for a long time.
Yeah. Thanks. I mean, no one's ever said I was a pioneer before, but I'm a little bit in shock, really. Thanks. No one's ever said that to us before, but I don't know why it is about whatever it is about myself, but I never really look at what I'm doing in my career, you know, what I've done. I never really big myself up. I never really see, oh, I've achieved this, but because I still really feel like I haven't achieved anything. I still feel like I've got so much to achieve and so much to go out there and do and fulfill. I've still got big dreams and big aspirations for winning that belt. You know, I've said it in the very beginning. I'll die trying, and that flame's still alive. You know, and there's a lot more fight left in us. I really only just starting to feel comfortable in the UFC now, and the performances that I'm going to put on are going to get better. I'm maturing as a fighter. I'm learning the game as a fighter as I'm getting older, and you know, with these skills that I'm learning, it's making one dangerous fighter. You know.
I know. I do want to move forward and obviously talk about TUF Smashes, but before we do that, I just want to talk about some of your, you know, some of the people you face, because it's fair to say you don't get an easy fight in the UFC. I mean, every person you face is a top level guy, and that's been the same for you. And you've faced some of the biggest names in you know, obviously it's a young sport, some of the biggest names in the history of the sport. I mean, Aaron Riley's been around for a long time. Dennis Seaver's on a hell of a run at the moment. Spencer Fisher has pretty much been around since the division started, and these are all guys that you've faced and you've beat. Okay, let's move forward to. I think there's been a big turning point recently as well. Has been TUF Smashes and your move back up to lightweight. I know you tried at featherweight, but you certainly look better at lightweight than you certainly looked stronger at lightweight than what you did at featherweight. Now we talked a little bit there about Michael Bisping, and I've been lucky enough to speak to quite a few of the cast members from TUF Smashes. I spoke to all the lightweights, and I spoke to Brad as well from middleweight. And to put it into perspective, they talk about you the way you talk about Michael Bisping, and that's what made me say what I said. But let's talk a little bit about TUF Smashes. What was your experience on TUF Smashes like as a coach?
I loved it, mate. In one sense, I loved it. Being able to help the guys fulfill their dreams and chase what they wanted to achieve, and just being there. I didn't realise that I would get so emotionally attached to the show. Like I made a lot of friends. I still speak to all of the guys, the Australian guys and the British guys, the TV producers on the show, the film crew. I still speak to a lot of the people, and it was just a good time. I had so much fun doing it. The team, what I brought out, Dean Amasinger, Jimmy Jar, Erin Beach, and Jason Soares, for being so young, we were so mature and sat down and really worked on it and analysed the whole fight game, really, like where we want to do, what we want to do, how we want to do it, who's got this guy, who's got that guy, what happens if this guy gets, and it was like that for 6 weeks non-stop every day, and we were just fixated on it. We all really loved the time, and we put a lot of hard work into it, and I loved that side of it. The downside was that I spent quite a lot of time out of not fighting, you know. From time started filming to when I actually got to fight George was like 7 months, and that's quite a long time to be out of a fighter and not being injured, you know. I was healthy, I was still training, and it's just mentally draining to feel good and not being able to have a fight to focus on, you know, as an athlete. You can't always just train and not have no goals to set, and just because you feel like you're running a little bit dry. But all in all, I really did enjoy the time, but the time away from fighting got to us.
Yeah, I can understand that, especially like you say, you're still very young, and you've obviously got still got a lot that you want to achieve, and you're very hungry at the moment, which is, you know, something you said earlier on. So I want to ask you about some of the specifics of the show, and then we'll move on to obviously your fight with George. Did you know any of the UK team going in?
Yeah, I knew. Well, the selection process was pretty much. It was a lot different from how it normally is. I just got to see clips of fighters training, doing an interview. I got to see them hit pads and rolling, and I got to select my team through that video. I was pretty much being like Joe Silva, to be honest with you. I got to select my team. I think I selected the team from like 20 guys. So yeah, I knew quite a few of them. Obviously, I trained with Colin Fletcher in the Northeast before. We've been training for quite a while. We're from the same team in the Northeast, and yeah, so Colin was I think Colin was my second pick. I actually picked Norman first for the lightweight. He was the first one I picked. I did obviously, Norm's Irish, I didn't know him, but I just seen his video and he looked the best. He definitely was that one step ahead of everyone else, and that was from the very early stages that I knew when I watched that. And so I did have an idea of a few of them. I was quite fortunate that Dean was in England, and Dean kind of knew a few of the guys who was going into it as well, so he kind of helped us on some of the guys who I didn't know and who he thought was the best and who he thought would do well, so he kind of helped us out with that too.
Was there anyone in there out of the cast that you picked that surprised you the most?
Mikey Wilkinson. I think Mike was because I didn't know Mike, I'd never heard of him, but he looked real good on pads, he looked real good grappling on the video, and he was the one that I took a risk because I picked Mikey Wilkinson as the 4th pick and Brendan as my 5th pick as my reserve, and obviously during the show Michael passed out, got injured, and Brendan came into the show because he was my 5th pick. So yeah, Mikey on the show was so unfortunate. Obviously to get the eye poke and have to have surgery on his eye. I really think Mikey could have had a good run against Norman or Colin. It would have been a great fight to watch either of them fight. I just knew that all my lightweights weren't losing to any of the Australian lightweights. We had such a strong lightweight team. I was so confident we were taking away a lightweight winner. And it was unfortunate for Mike that he had to pull out through injury.
It was. That was one of the things I was going to say actually. The thing that stood out to me on the show was the lightweights. The UK lightweights completely dominated, and then with the middleweights, Brad did very well, obviously, and he made it not the middleweights, sorry, the welterweights. Brad did really well and obviously made it to the final, but the Australian welterweights were very dominant. Did that surprise you?
Not really. It didn't surprise us. I knew we had a strong welterweight team. I don't think Valentino was really a welterweight. He struggled so bad to make weight. He was he's definitely a middleweight, even a light heavyweight. And welterweight's just not his division. You know, he looked gaunt. He looked drawn for that fight. And you know, I love Bowler and Luke, but to be honest, I just didn't think they were ready for the whole Ultimate Fighter ordeal. You know, not the UFC level, not in competition, because I do think they can compete with some great guys, and I do think they're on the verge of making it big, and I do think they've got a career ahead of them for sure. But I just don't think they were mentally focused on the whole show attitude, the way the show worked, and how mentally draining it was. And I just don't think them two really were focused on that. You know, to win the Ultimate Fighter, it's not about being the best fighter. It's not about having the most skills. It's mentally who can stay focused the longest, who wants it the most, and how much are you willing to go out there and get it. Them 3 things is like the main things that you need to win that show. Obviously, you need skill and technique and the training to be fortunate to be healthy. But them 3 things is a major to winning the show.
Do you think that your experience as a contestant helped you as a coach and like advisor for your contestants?
Yeah, 100%. Because mentally, I knew what the guys were going through. The guys would ask us questions that I asked myself, you know what I mean? I knew the answers to what to answer them. That's why I could help them out so much, because I've been in that position before, and I knew what they were feeling, and I knew what was going through the brains, and I knew they wanted to do so much, and I knew they wanted to do this, but I know we've got 6 weeks, just relax, just calm down. You know, I knew how the show was going to be. They were so hungry and so keen, and I'm pretty sure that if you asked every one of them that we played it out perfect, you know. everything, all the training and everything went out perfect, and I was there for them the whole time. And if anything they ever needed, I was always there for them, And that was one, because I'd won the show, because I went the whole way through the show, and I knew the experiences about the show. That was one of the biggest things for me to help them as a coach.
Yeah, well, I've spoke to 5 of the 8 cast from Team UK, not including obviously Michael Pastor, who left the show. So I spoke to 5, and they all said the same. They spoke highly of you and of your team. They all said the same thing. They all had good things to say. Now, there was a lot of hype in the build up to the fight with you and George. There was a lot of talk of bad blood. Now, as somebody who watches the fights, as a fan, you never know how much of the hype is built up for the fight or is real. I mean, we've seen it in the past with Chelson's a prime example. He's a great promoter. Yeah. Michael Bisping's a great promoter, but they'll come out after and said they didn't mean a lot of what they said. With you and George, it did seem like it was real. So was the hype real, or was it just for the fight?
No, 100% it was real. As speaking to me now, do you think I sound like Michael Bisping, or do you think I sound like Chelsea?
No.
Exactly. I'm not a actor. I don't hype things up. I say what I feel, man. I speak from my heart. I wear my heart on my sleeves. And if I don't like someone, if we don't get along, I'm not going to make it 10 times worse. I'm going to go out there and see exactly how I feel. I'm going to see exactly how it is and how it was. And I'm not going to care if he thinks I shouldn't be seeing it how it was. I still don't like George to this day. And I hope to God that we never meet in a social environment again, because we'll probably end up fighting again. I seriously don't like the guy. He done a lot of things on that show what pissed us off, and it just fueled the fire. To put in a great camp, and the energy that I needed to go out there and put him in I knew in the first round when I hit him with that right hand, I knew I could have finished him in that first round, but I didn't want to. That was my mind frame. I wanted to make him realise that he wasn't on my level, and he was never going to get nowhere near my level. And yeah, I'm a better fighter than him.
Oh, you clearly are. I mean, we saw that on the fight. The thing for anyone that fights is it's okay talking a good game. You've got to be able to back it up, and obviously you more than did that in that matchup. What is it about him that you don't like? Because he's always come across as being someone who's he doesn't have much personality. He doesn't have much of a persona. You've seen that with his humour. He did not get the humour of Team UK at all, and he could not put anything out. Even his own team seemed uncomfortable by some of his jokes. But what is it about him specific that you didn't like?
I just think he's socially very awkward, and that's not something I don't dislike about him. It's him that makes it awkward and dislikes it about everyone else, if you know what I mean. He's socially awkward. He makes everyone else feel bad, and he puts it on everyone else as if it's everyone else's fault, and that just causes an upset straight away. From day one, the first time I met him, I'd never met George Sotiropoulos before. I'd never even thought about fighting that guy. I had no reason. I showed him respect. I shook his hand. I said, this is going to be fun. Let's have fun. Let's enjoy it. And then once we got into the competition role, his mindset changed, and we were nearly fighting in the street outside of our hotel. It was crazy, man. I don't know if it was just the age difference. My guys who I brought in from my team were younger, and we were having fun. We were enjoying it. And their guys were a lot older than what we were, and they were trying to demand respect from us because they've been older. I don't know what it was, but certainly once we started pulling away with the lead, he couldn't handle defeat. And once these telltale signs that I was seeing from him, it just made us realise that I had him beat. Mentally, I had him beat. He couldn't look me in the eye. He couldn't stare down. He was a beaten man, and I think him realising that and knowing that himself early in the filming started making him act even worse than what he was in general. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. There was rumours of a fracas as well between him and one of your coaches. Was that true, or was that just made up?
No, it's 100% true. That was one of the reasons I will never forget him. As a professional fighter, there's a conduct that we should all, you never go out there and hit someone in a street fight, let alone blindside them. He jumped on my friend from behind, and my Erin Beach still knocked him out and embarrassed him on the street. And from that point on in the show, it was hard times. He wasn't cooperating with anyone. He was just being such a dick, man. So arrogant, such a dick, and we couldn't be in the same room together. The whole producers had to come together and separate us. We had to move into a separate hotel. My team, we had to split the drivers up. It was crazy, man. Dana White was on the phone screaming at us, and I was like, Dana, listen, this hasn't got nothing to do with me. I didn't do anything. It got a little bit crazy. George gets a little bit crazy at times, and it was. But that's 100% true story. And when I finish retire from fighting, I'm sure I'll put it down in a book, and it'll follow me for the rest of my life, I reckon.
That's fantastic. Obviously, I don't want to take away, if you're going to put that down and write, I don't want to take too much away. I just want to clarify, was it one punch? Did he one punch knock him out?
One punch put him down.
Wow.
One punch put him down. Unfortunately, there was no cameras around at the time. It was at the back of the studio, and all the cameras was, because I was with my team inside the gym, and the Australian team had just arrived with George, and they were walking around Erin Beach, and George was walking around the outside of the studio, and it happened off camera.
Wow.
So it's obviously only my word, but my word against his. But he knows the truth. I know the truth. We seen this, and that's what happened.
That's awesome. It reminds me of the old Lee Murray Tita Ortiz story. That's just absolutely... It's not something you expect, is it? It's just crazy. Okay, let's move forward. I was there in Stockholm for your next fight, which was, of course, against Ryan Couture. On paper, this was always going to be a tough fight. He was coming off of a big win against KJ Noons, KJ Noons obviously a high-level striker. There was a lot of hype on him as well, because obviously he's the son of Randy Couture, and of course Randy Couture is a pioneer of the sport as well. He's one of the ones that has instigated it for everybody, not just for the UK, not just for literally for everyone. I mean, he's certainly someone I've always looked up to as a fan of the sport. Now, this was always going to be a tough fight anyway, but then something happened out the back before you fought. What happened before you had to face Ryan?
There was a lot of bad things happened in the camp. The lead-up, it wasn't just I kicked my coach's elbow, and that was just the final nail in the coffin. The whole camp was an amazing camp. We put up an amazing camp together. I had some of the best fighters in the world to train with, and my body just broke down in that camp. It was the worst camp I've ever put my body through. I got the flu, a real bad flu, for the first 2 weeks of the camp, and that knocked us really bad. I strained my MCL in the camp. I hurt my rotator cuff in the camp, and the week before the fight, I got a staph infection in the side of my leg. So I had to get like a little surgery to cut that out and clean it out, and that was 7 days before the fight. So the whole camp was the worst camp that I've ever put in. My body was so tired, beat up, just hurting. I wasn't going into that fight in good shape, and believe it, I was worried about that fight. I was panicking. It was mentally a hard thing to fight at a high level, and to be 100% is hard enough, but to go in there 60% is even worse. And then on the night warming up, I didn't feel too bad. I felt sharp. I felt quick. I was excited for the fight. I just wanted to get it going. And then the very first kick that I threw, I hit my coach's elbow, and I just dropped to the floor. And my foot swelled up like a balloon. And my whole team and everything was just like, what the fuck just happened in this camp? It's going from bad to worse. But when I look back now, that was the best thing that could have happened to us, because I got mad, I got angry. Do you know when you stub your toe, you kick your toe on the table and it hurts, and you jump around and you're swearing and you're mad, and all you want to do is just punch something what's close? That's the kind of feeling that I got, and I lost all nerves, I lost all fear, and I was just like, I was switched on from that, and I iced my foot, I strapped it up with a little bit of tape, and I was like, do you know what? Nothing else can go wrong. Nothing else can go wrong from this camp now. Whatever we've done, I'm going to go out there and I'm just going to put it all on the line. And so yeah, that's possibly wasn't the best thing to happen. I don't want it to ever happen again. Believe us, I was terrified walking down to that fight, thinking, how am I going to get through this? But yeah, it was a blessing in disguise, because it got me up there ready for that fight, and it got us mad. And yeah, I was hurting in the fight. Don't get us wrong, I was hurting, but it lit a spark under us, you know. It was just like, how much do you want to be a real fighter? And yeah, I think I proved that night that I was a real fighter.
I think you more than proved it, to be honest with you. Who was the coach that was holding the pads for you?
Probably the best coach in the world, Erin Beach. It was, and I didn't even throw the kick hard. It was the very first kick. It was just a warm-up kick. It just hit in the right spot.
Oh.
I glanced, like, hit his elbow, and it just hit in the right spot, and I don't know what it was. It just defined the whole camp of how much luck I had in that camp. Don't get us wrong, I put in a solid camp. I was training my ass off, and I battled through everything, and my body broke down, but my mind stayed strong. I focused on what I wanted to achieve and what I was going to set out to do, and my mind and my heart will always keep going before my body. My body will stop way before my mind and my heart keep going, you know, because that's the type of person that I am. I'm a little bit stupid like that.
I just want to say, talk about irony. You've had 7 months of not being able to fight because you're recording the show, and you like you say, you're perfectly healthy. You come into this fight, and obviously every fight is your biggest fight. Every next fight is your biggest fight, which is another big fight for you. And it just sounds like you went through hell, and yet you could have probably fought twice in those 7 months, realistically.
Yeah, it was bad timing. I don't know what it was. I don't know. Just nothing went right for us. You just get them periods in your life, I guess, and just nothing was going right for us. I was having bad sparring days, bad wrestling days. And it just wasn't me. Just, if you ask my coaches, they'll probably tell you they know what the real me is like. They've seen me in the gym and seen me perform, and then they've seen me on bad days. And yeah, a lot of that camp was a rough camp.
Well, it obviously, summer obviously went right because the fight it was just fantastic. It was up there again. It was one of your best performances of your career, up there with your knockout of George Sotiropoulos, because Ryan Couture is tough, and KJ Noons couldn't put him down, and he's got a great striking batter. I mean, I remember KJ Noons finishing Nick Diaz with striking, he cut him open, but you put him away pretty handily in round 2. What was the actual diagnosis on your leg injury?
Well, there was no breaks in the metatarsals or anything like that, but I just had a really bad serious bruising.
Yeah.
Just it right in the sweet spot. It didn't take much of impact to cause it, but like from the pictures that I tweeted on the next day, and yeah, it was bad. My foot was up like a balloon.
Well, I actually stayed in the same hotel that you were staying in Sweden. I actually saw you the next day, and you couldn't walk properly. I mean, you were hobbling. There's no way you looked like you could have fought 3 rounds, and you were obviously prepared to fight 3 rounds the night before. I was actually at the media scrum as well afterwards, and again, this has got to be good for you because Dana. I mean, at the end of the day, Dana White is obviously he's the big boss man, and he spoke very highly of you because of the fact you had this injury and you didn't tell anybody. And you went out there and fought, and he had nothing but praise for you. Did you hear what he said?
I did hear. I've not heard him from his mouth, but I haven't seen any videos or anything. But I did kind of. Some people told us what he was saying, and Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, in any walk, in any job or any work, you like to impress your boss, and yeah, good things are going to come from you, you know. I just hope that with him being impressed with what I did and how I handled myself through the fights, you know, that means that I get a big fight next and get the fight that I want, you know, get a big fight, a big show, and you know,
Yeah.
I hope that's like my reward, you know. That's what I want. That's what I've been training my life for, and hopefully we get it, you know.
So I take it you don't know yet. Do you know when you'll be fighting?
Well, I'm still from my fight. I'm still under medical suspension until August. But I've told the UFC that I really want to fight October in Manchester if that card comes off.
Yeah.
If that's 100%, I would love to be back home fighting in England. I mean, it's been 3 years now, and you know, I think I owe the English fans a real fight. You know, I got most of my support. I mean, if not a lot of my support, 90% of my support's from England. 90% of my support's probably from the northeast of England, and my family as well. But you know, I want to come back and I want to fight in front of my hometown, my home friends, my family, and like I say that it will just be a special night for me, just to get back and say thank you to the fans. You know, thank you for all the support. You know, like I get a lot of fans wishing me good luck and speaking to us on Twitter. I try to speak to as many people as I can on Twitter and Facebook, like you say, anything. And I just want to repay the fans by going out there and putting on an awesome fight. Whether I win, lose, or draw, whatever happens, I just want to entertain the fans and the fans to go away on that night and go, you know what, Ross Pearson fought his arse off for us. You know, that's money well spent.
I don't think we've ever had a boring Ross Pearson fight yet, from what I remember in the UFC, and I've seen all your UFC fights, so I think. You said there you obviously want a big fight. Do you know? Have you got any ideas on who you want to face?
I would love a top 10 opponent, get my name up in the ranks. I solidly believe that I'm in the top 10 right now. If some other websites don't believe it is, I find that offensive that I'm not in the top 10. You know, I really believe that I am inside the top 10. Anyone inside the top 10, I'm challenging. You want to fight us? I'm ready to fight October. Let's do it. You know, I'll fight anyone. Whoever the UFC wants to fight, who wants me to fight, I'm down. I know Takanori Gomi is a former world champion. He could probably be a Hall of Famer in the UFC. Pride veteran. I wouldn't mind a fight with him, although he's not in the top 10. My first choice would be someone inside the top 10, but if we can't get anyone in the top 10, I wouldn't mind fighting Takanori Gomi. I think our styles make a great fight for the fans, and he's kind of a guy that I looked up to in my early career and watched him knocking out people, and I want to see if I can knock him out, you know. I want to test my skills against his.
I think that would be a fantastic fight. I think that's got Fight of the Night written all over it, personally. I mean, like you say, Takanori Gomi has been there and done it. He was obviously a Pride FC standout. He's the champion of Pride as well. I think that'd be an amazing fight. Well, I want to say, Ross, I really appreciate you coming on. It's been a real pleasure being able to chat with you. Like, as you can tell from what I've said, you're obviously somebody that I look up to, and I love watching you fight. So, you know, thank you for giving me your time.
No problem, man. Thank you for the kind words, man. Anytime when I'm home in England, I'm always available. So if you want to do another one anytime after my next fight, report on the next knockout, next fight, we'll do it, man.
Definitely. I've got your number now. I'll message you and we'll get that set up. Before I let you go, then I want to give you a chance to any shout out. So let people know about your Facebook and your Twitter. I mean, you've already got a lot of followers anyway, but let people know. Yeah. And also shout out any friends, family, sponsors.
Yeah. You want to keep up in track, keep up with what I'm doing. Follow us on Twitter at Ross the Real Deal. I've got Instagram, Facebook, Vine, all that social media bullshit. If you want to follow us, track us, I try to get back to as many people as I can. I like interacting with you and talking shit. You know, you give me shit, I'll give you shit straight back. You know, I'm that kind of guy. But yeah, for all the fans, I just want to dedicate everything to the fans. You know, I'd say a thank you to the fans. Like I said before, I want to come back and I want to put on a fight for you, man. I want to put on a real good, old-fashioned British style fight inside my home fans, my home country, and set Manchester arena alight. You know, set that place on fire when I come down to fight there. You know, if I get the opportunity to fight there, it'll be an amazing night for me and the fans. You know, and just dedicate my fight to them, you know, to the fans for all of the support over the years, and through the good and the bad and the ugly, you know, it's only going to get better. And just believers, I have not achieved anything. My mindset right now is that I've not achieved anything in this sport, and I still want gold, and I'm going to die trying. That's pretty much it. I'm not really a good speech kind of guy, but I tried.
That's awesome. Thanks, Ross.
No problem.
Okay, that was this week's show. I hope you enjoyed that. I'll be back again next week for a show as well. I've got one guest confirmed for next week, which I'm very excited about. I'd say it's fair to say he's kind of the man of the moment at the moment. He's coming off of his biggest career win. He's probably just cracked the top 10 at heavyweight in the heavyweights after beating big country Roy Nelson this weekend. So with that interview next week will be with Stipe Miocic, which is going to be great. It'd be great to hear what he's got to say. So definitely thanks for listening to this week, and don't miss next week's show.